Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Hi, I hope everyone's doing well today. Thank you again for joining us on another edition of the Sip and Chat with Siri. Um, if wealth determines power, then ownership determines leverage. If you joined us on Thursday, we had a great conversation with Dr. Ola and our guests that chimed in, that made comments. It was really, really a good show. It was a great segue into what we are about to discuss today. Okay. I want you guys to know that this is not just a live stream. This is actually a series that we're going to be discussing. And we are happy that we're celebrating Black History Month. This is great. So I hope you guys are celebrating it. And also, we want to continue, we want to give honor to the Jackson family, give our condolences and send our prayers up continually for Reverend Jesse Jackson's family and his congregation and so on. I know there's some people celebrating there today, and I had this pre-planned. So had it not been pre-planned, then I certainly would have attended that celebration today at Operation Push. But we're going to miss him. He, someone called me yesterday, and they were just like, Siri, who's going to pick up the mantle? And fight for justice for us, and really someone that loves the people and that really stands for God and just stands for the people, like Reverend Jesse Jackson did, and Martin Luther King and others that marched on that bridge in Selma to fight for our justice and for fight for our civil rights. So I said to her, I'm not sure. I don't know. Um, I know that God will raise up someone and that will pick up that mantle, but it can start with us. We can support one another. We can support what we do in the community together, because all of us have that little piece that God has given to us to help our communities, right? So whatever it is that God has you doing, let us know, and so that we can support you, and we can be there for you as well. But I do know that God is going to raise someone up to pick up the mantle and fight for justice, continually fight for justice, as Reverend Jackson did. And he was such a beautiful man. I'm so grateful to God that I got a chance to meet him in person. We were at the invited by the Chicago Bears to attend a Bears game in the Skybox, and I was there, he was there, and it was just such an honor to see the man who stood at my graduation in Marshall High School, and he said, keep hope alive, and just gave us words of encouragement as we're moving forward as adults, young adults, going out into the world, not knowing what we were about to face, not knowing what challenges or what lies ahead, right? When you're graduating from high school, you have no idea, because before you were under the wings of your parents, and, you go home, your dad's there, your mom is there. And for me, dinner was ready and cooked and, and everything. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know, seeing him in person, this man that I admired all my life, was just wonderful. It's just wonderful. So I'm just really grateful for God for using Jesse Jackson, Martin Luther King, and all of our ancestors who fought for our freedoms and fought for our rights and so on to really. I'm grateful that he allowed them to be with us, and to really encourage us. And I believe that because of people like Jesse Jackson, and of course my parents and others, but I mean, they instilled that confidence in us. You know what I'm saying? They let us know that we can be somebody. It doesn't matter where you came from. I mean, I grew up on the west side of Chicago. I didn't know what my future entailed. I didn't know what was going to be ahead of me, and I was being caught up like another statistic in the community, I actually walked across stage pregnant, and I'm not afraid to say that, because we all do things when we're young and we don't know the impact of it in our lives, right? But we think we're in love, and and this is the life that we're going to have. But it wasn't a mistake. I'll never call my son a mistake. He is the joy of my life, and I just, I'm just so grateful. I'm feeling very grateful today, and I know that we have a lot of work to do. The needle hasn't been moved too much on the wealth gap between Black Americans and other cultures. Yes, we're free, but are we free? Do we have access to capital? Do we have enough Black businesses? Of course not. Do we have multi-million dollar, billion dollar corporations out of all the hundreds of millions of Black people? Do we have enough people that are billionaires, that are multimillionaires? No, we don't. No, we don't. So we have to continue to fight. The fight continues. We have to pick up the mantle, all of us, from where Reverend Jackson left off. We have to pick that up as a village, as a community, as a people, and keep fighting for justice, keep fighting for access to capital, keep fighting for what we know we deserve, because not only do we deserve it because we help build this nation, but we deserve it because we are children of the Most High God. And the Lord said that the righteous take it by force, right? We have to get out here, we have to open our mouth, and we have to fight for what we want, and we have to come together, people. We have to come together as a culture, as a Black community. Yes, we are all God's children created in His image, but the world has separated the cultures, unfortunately. And the most disinvested, disproportionate people in the world are Black people. Why is that? I know we ask that question, right? See, we can be the change that we want to see in our community. And that's what this series is about. We talked about, what do you do after 7 a.m.? That is the name of what were you about to see. What do you do after 7 a.m.? That all, it determines, everything's determined in your life after what you do at 7 a.m. when you wake up in the morning. Do you plan your week? Are you working to just gain income? Are you going to school just to get an income? Or are you going to school to go into your own business? What is it that you're planning to do? And if you need help, are you reaching out to a coach? Are you reaching out to a mentor? Are you utilizing the resources of your chambers, your local chamber, or a chamber like ours, the state chamber, at ilbcoc.org? Are you utilizing what we have here at the Illinois Black Chamber? Are you utilizing? What are you doing to create wealth for your family? Because it starts with you. It's not on anyone else. It is completely on you and your faith and what you do. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I have a hard stop, but I have to go to an expo that's going to be hosted here in the city. So, but I wanted to just share these words with you and let you know we are in this together. I hope you guys, to engage in the conversation, and you ask questions, you make comments, because this is a very serious matter. Okay. So I want you now to be prepared. We're about to move into the video that I'm going to share with you. And I look forward to hearing your comments and your feedback. This is the second half of the video. So, okay.
For it to be the last. Even though they knew that MOVE members were barricaded inside the basement of their house with 6 children, police tear gassed the home and flooded the basement with water. But that wasn't all. Police had planned on bombing the house well in advance, and during the siege, using a state police helicopter, Philadelphia police dropped a gym bag with 37 pounds of C4 explosive on the MOVE house and detonated it. The resulting explosion set off a fire that engulfed the home. Police fired upon people as they attempted to leave the house to keep them trapped inside as the building burned to the ground. The fire department turned off their hoses and allowed the move house and the surrounding homes to burn down. In the end, the damage toll was tremendous. 62 homes destroyed, 6 adults killed, 5 children dead, 1 mayor black.
He was the mayor at the time. And whether he actually gave the order or not is kind of irrelevant. You're the leader of the city. You were in on it no matter how you want to look at it. And if you were not personally guilty, you certainly didn't name any people who were. So as far as I'm concerned, it's you. Okay, he's since become a preacher now. I guess he's trying to save his soul after what he participated in.
If Wilson Good is in need of absolution, he'll have plenty of company at the altar of repentance among his fellow first black mayors. Tom Bradley was the first black mayor of Los Angeles, home of America's most notoriously violent police department. A former police officer himself, Bradley had plenty of opportunity to fix the problem since he was elected to office 5 times, serving for 20 years. And under his administration, the LA Police Department gained such an infamous record for police brutality and violence, it was single-handedly responsible for spawning a new music genre, gangster rap. In 1978, Moon Landrieu was the last white mayor elected in New Orleans. That year, Dutch Morial became New Orleans' first black mayor. He would serve until 1986. 8 years later, Dutch Morial's son, Mark Morial, would be elected mayor. During the time the Morials were in office, New Orleans, which could have become the next black Mecca after Washington, D.C. and Atlanta, instead became the murder capital of the United States. Which wasn't surprising since after Hurricane Katrina, it was revealed to the world it was the most desperately poor major city in the United States. 8 years after Mark Morial left office, followed by Ray Nagin, the people of New Orleans decided to end the era of black mayoral leadership and chose a career politician they felt they could trust. Mitch Landrieu, the son of the last white mayor of New Orleans, Moon Landrieu. The irony here isn't even vague. Same thing in Detroit. Just like in Atlanta, New Orleans, and Los Angeles, in 1974, Detroit celebrated the beginning of black mayoral leadership under Coleman Young. All the while, we failed to notice the deadly indicators of crime, unemployment, education, and poor housing, all the things exacerbated by poverty, never moved. In 1950, Detroit had a population of 1.84 million. Today, its population is around 700,000. And in the 34 years of black mayor leadership from Coleman Young to the now infamous Kwame Kilpatrick, our black politicians squandered every conceivable opportunity imaginable to resurrect Detroit. And by July 2013, their malfeasance ultimately drove the city into the largest municipal bankruptcy filing in American history. The city was placed under the control of a state-appointed emergency finance manager who has autocratic control of the city's day-to-day operations. After all of this, it wasn't surprising when in November 2013, following the lead of New Orleans, voters in Detroit opted to repeal the era of black mayors and elected their first white mayor in almost 4 decades. Across the country, the clock is literally turning backwards. What we've learned during our 60-year grand experiment with politics is we can elect all the black politicians we want. We can have a majority black population and even a majority black government, and nothing will change. Without money, your people have no power, and without power, your vote is meaningless. No sport in America of the last 100 years became a major international event until black men became a part of it. And this has always frustrated Black people because we've always known that while most of the people playing pro sports are Black, practically all of the people who own pro sports are white. Since their large paychecks are not controlled by the Black community and don't benefit anyone but themselves, we don't even count professional athletes as progress.
Well, somebody asked me one time, said, Dr. Heston, what would be the impact if people like, wouldn't it hurt Black folk if Oprah and Tiger Woods lost their money? No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't damage Blacks one iota. Black people in general could care less. You know why? They're not connected to the Black community. If they got money, they got these billions of dollars, and none of it help elevating the quality of life for their own people. Then if they lost it, didn't make any difference to Black folk. It didn't make any difference when they had it to Black folk. Well, make any difference when they lose it.
LeBron James, his marketing, okay? He's a rich young man, but what he's making isn't even half of what the executives of the Miami Heat are making.
Why can't LeBron and the 19 best players just go start their own league? All they have to do is book venues, play in. Everyone pays to see the superstars. So you put 2 superstars on 10 teams, and then you put a team together with, they're great players everywhere. But my point is, because for whatever reason, understanding that true wealth is created from owning assets is something that we as a people haven't really grasped very well.
Our athletes and entertainers don't have sizable amounts of wealth. They may own their home, but that's about it. They're not major traders in wealth. Oprah's not a major trader in wealth. Bob Johnson, LeBron, Jay-Z, these folks are not major traders in wealth. They have lots of money, but where's the assets?
But Black people did own their own major league sports organization, and the story of the Negro Leagues is as compelling as it is all too familiar.
When we talk about the Negro Leagues, there are actually multiple Negro Leagues that were run by different groups of owners, and they were often rivals with each other. There was the Negro National League, there was the Negro American League, there was the Eastern Colored League, there was the East-West League, there was a Negro Southern League, and there were also what were considered Negro League minor leagues. And so you had a multiplicity of organizations, individuals that kind of, we talk about now as the Negro Leagues, but they were not at the time as centrally organized and structured as Major League Baseball was.
Okay, we're just going to pause right there. But I want you guys to think about what you're hearing, what it means to you structurally, and what must shift while you're paying attention to this video and what they're discussing about Black economics. That's what it's based on, Black economics. What must we do to create a change? Where have we come from? Where are we today? And where we need to go? So this is what you're listening to. All right. We need to change because right now we still own less than 1% of the wealth in this country, right? The nation is celebrating its 250th year. We're celebrating Black History Month, but how far have we come? What is it that we need to change within our own environment? What is it that we need to change within our own community? So this 7 a.m. video is all about Black economics. And so I want you guys to think about that. Again, what are we hearing? What does it mean structurally? What must shift in our community? This week's Wealth Builder, that is what we want to take away from this. What do we need to do to start building real wealth in our community? Because we can't stay the same, right? We cannot stay the same. So continue to enjoy the video.
But they were not at the time as centrally organized and structured as Major League Baseball was.
Philadelphia was a major hub for the Negro Leagues, and many of its founders originated from the same church.
Philadelphia had a very large and active Black community. One of its centers was the Mother Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church, which is still an active community church to this day.
Mother Bethel African Episcopal Church is a tale about Black empowerment of its own. Mother Bethel was founded by Richard Allen, a slave who bought his own freedom and was converted to Christianity. He had joined St. George's Methodist Episcopal Church, a white church that allowed a then tiny number of Blacks to worship with the white members. Allen was asked to begin preaching for their 5 a.m. services, and soon the church had so many new Black converts, the building could no longer contain everyone. But St. George's white members refused to tolerate the now large number of Blacks and constructed a balcony in the church where the Black members were to sit in order to keep them segregated from the white congregants. After a physical altercation where white church trustees attempted to move the Black congregants off the main floor where the white members were by force, Richard Allen and the Black members of St. George's chose empowerment over integration and started their own church. The church is now an historic landmark that still holds services today. But more than that, it holds the distinction of being the oldest continually Black-owned piece of real estate in the United States. And members of the church would take this spirit of empowerment with them to build the Negro Leagues in Philadelphia. Members like Octavius Cotto.
One of the important figures of early baseball, early Philadelphia baseball, early Philadelphia Black baseball was a man named Octavius Cato. Octavius Cato was a political campaigner for civil rights in this country in the last part of the 19th century. And he was also one of the founders of the Philadelphia Pythians, which was one of the first organized Black teams in Philadelphia. They played for the African American, for what was called then the Colored Championship in the 1880s, and he was eventually murdered on 9th and South Street in downtown Philadelphia during an effort to turn out the Black vote in Philadelphia.
It wasn't marching, protesting, and politics that built the Negro Leagues. It was Black business, legal and otherwise.
Ed Bolden was a local businessman. Ed Bolden had a team in the 1920s called the Hilldale Giants. Later on, they were called the Hilldale Daisies. They famously played in the 1925, the first colored, that's what it was called then, the first colored World Series. One of the most well-known stories is Gus Greenlee, who was the owner of the Pittsburgh Crawfords. Pittsburgh Crawfords were one of the top teams in the 1930s in Major League Baseball. When they opened the 1933 season and the Negro National League, they had, starting on the mound was Satchel Paige, and their catcher was Josh Gibson, who were really two of the top players in Major League Baseball at the time. I mean, Josh Gibson, they said, was rival Babe Ruth as a home run hitter. And Satchel Paige was one of the greatest pitchers of all time, Major League or Negro League. And that was Gus Greenlee. He was a major organized crime figure in Pittsburgh, was involved in all aspects, numbers, racketeering, and he owned a team. And it was a great opportunity. Owning the Pittsburgh Crawfords was a really convenient and good way for him to launder money. In 1933, with really the rise of the Negro Leagues, the efforts of Rube Foster in Chicago, Gus Greenlee in Pittsburgh, Composey in Pittsburgh, and the Chicago American Giants in Chicago, the Homestead Grays who played in Pittsburgh and DC. The Negro Leagues really came into their own as an organized and successful business for entertainment, for baseball, and for Black enterprise.
Ownership is where all true wealth lies. And because of this, the Negro Leagues were not solely a Black enterprise. Because it didn't have to abide by the segregationist white male rules of the National Association of Baseball, Negro baseball opened up historic opportunities for more people than Major League Baseball ever did.
To complicate it more, there was also white ownership in the Negro Leagues, and it also presented an opportunity for other minorities to engage in business. And there were Jewish owners who were active in the Negro Leagues because they were also excluded from Major League Baseball.
Effa Manley was a Jewish female. She and her black husband were owners of the Eagles team in Newark. She ultimately became the first and only woman inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Eddie Gottlieb was part of the South Philadelphia Hebrew Association basketball team. He became a co-owner of the Philadelphia Stars. And long before Major League Baseball, the Negro Leagues were the first to break the color barrier.
The Negro Leagues integrated before they had their first white player, Eddie Kelp, for the Cleveland Buckeyes. He integrated the Negro Leagues in 1946 before the Major Leagues brought up a black player. Under segregation, parallel industries existed. Social clubs, businesses, and that extended to baseball. And so, it's only in the past couple of years that Major League Baseball has its first African-American owner, Magic Johnson and the Dodgers. And as much as we celebrate Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier in 1947, it wasn't until the 60s that baseball had its first African-American coach. It wasn't until 1975 that baseball had its first African-American manager in Frank Robinson. And it wasn't until only a couple of years ago that we had the first owner in Magic Johnson. And so what existed under the Negro Leagues was you had a black enterprise and black teams that were run and owned by black owners.
The beginning of the end of the Negro Leagues can be traced back to a specific event on a specific day. October 23rd, 1945. That event had a name. Jackie Robinson.
It was terrible for the Negro Leagues. Integration was terrible for the Negro Leagues. What happened is that when Branch Rickey signed Jackie Robinson to Robinson's first contract, he had a clause put in there that said that Robinson had no other obligations to any other organization. That was important because Jackie Robinson had been playing for the Kansas City Monarchs and had a contract with the Kansas City Monarchs. And Major League Baseball is part of a large organization called the National Association. The National Association governs all of professional baseball. It still exists today. And that's what unifies Major League Baseball and minor league baseball and protects and basically governs the transaction of contracts, player contracts.
Because it costs time and money to develop players, one of the chief rules of the National Association is that no team can steal another team's players once that player is under contract, even if that player wants to leave. You have to compensate the team, usually by buying out his contract or trading for other players. But none of the Negro Leagues were part of the National Association, and as such, Major League Baseball argued they were not required to honor contracts players had signed with Negro League teams. Major League Baseball began poaching players from the Negro Leagues with little or no compensation to the teams they were taking them from.
After Branch Rickey signed Jackie Robinson in late 1945, in early 1946, he went ahead and he signed Roy Campanella, who was playing down in Baltimore. He signed Don Newcomb. So he started signing other great African-American ball players for playing in the Negro Leagues. Once that happened, Larry Doby came to Cleveland in 1948. Satchel Paige came to Cleveland. And by the early 1950s, they were signing guys like Willie Mays. Willie Mays had played in Birmingham for the Black Barons. Hank Aaron had played in the Negro Leagues. And so there was all this amazing talent who were ready to sign to Major League Baseball. And what Major League Baseball did is basically signed all these players in the Negro Leagues without providing compensation. And the sense in the black press was that nobody wanted to really protest that in public for fear of obstructing the path of these players to Major League Baseball. And what happened was that a lot of major league teams, the New York Giants were outstanding at this, is that they hired managers and scouts from the Negro Leagues who knew the players and had them scout out the talent. So that's how Willie Mays got to New York and the Giants. Was that the Giants had hired scouts who had been in the Negro Leagues to point them towards the best players.
The odds against the Negro Leagues ever truly being a viable entity against an institutional behemoth like the National Association of Baseball were pretty steep. I asked if there was any conceivable scenario under which the Negro Leagues could have survived. The only possible solution would have been Black unity.
I think what would have had to have happened is that there would have had to have been a unified front amongst the Negro League team owners and also amongst the players. Because I think it would have been a very difficult, I think in terms of public relations, period, had the Monarchs stepped in and said to Jackie Robinson, no, you can't leave us and go sign with the Dodgers. There would have been a huge backlash against the Monarchs because there's so much inertia and support for integration into Major League Baseball. And that was seen as so much the desired. They would have had to been a unified front from the players, the owners, and the fan base.
The reason you integrated is because Black people, post-traumatic slavery disorder, going back to the antebellum days, have always felt inferior to white people because they conditioned us to believe so. And we couldn't wait to prove to them and to ourselves how equal we were. And so when the opportunity to integrate came, our low racial self-esteem dictated that we vacated what we had and integrate what he had because we had always wanted his acceptance. Negro Leagues, they wanted to prove to the white folk that they were just as good, if not better, to ultimately prove it to themselves. But if I know I'm your equal, I don't have to prove it. If I know I'm your equal, I'm not going to integrate my institutions. I'm not going to shut down my schools, my hospitals, my oil business. I'm going to keep it because I know I'm your equal. But if I'm not sure, I might have to give it a shot just so I can know within myself that the white man is not superior to me, which means integration is just another word for insecurity.
The issue should have never been integration. And that's unforgivable for Black leadership in this country to allow people to bamboozle them into debating the issue of social integration. And the best way to explain that to you, I had one fellow ask me down in Tallahassee, Florida, I was speaking at the Hilton Hotel. I came off, he said, Dr. Evans, this is a white fellow, nice guy though. He said, no, you're just confusing us down here. That's why. He said, we just don't understand. We don't understand. He says, on one hand, we had Martin Luther King promote integration. And we got Malcolm X over here talking about segregation. He said, that's confusing to us. Which end of the stick do you all want? Do you want integration? Do you want segregation? I said, I don't want either end of the stick. That should never have been the issue. The issue should be aggregation. The aggregation means that I should be able to come together on a plane, whether you've got integration over here and you got segregation, I should be able to come on that plane, on that stick, any place I want to, and aggregate. Aggregate means pull my people together, pool all of their resources, their money, their votes, and their power, and their bodies and population to do whatever's best in our group self-interest.
Black people have always been eyewitnesses to American prosperity, but we've never been able to fulfill our potential to replicate the abundance that we've built for others. And I discovered our personal struggle to claim our place as entrepreneurs is not a new one. It's dogged us since before we left the plantations. There were several Black millionaires who emerged from Reconstruction, but none more celebrated than one daughter of slaves from Mississippi. Alayla Bundles is a family historian and an author who's written multiple books on one of Black America's most legendary figures.
I'm Madam C.J. Walker's great-great-granddaughter. I grew up in the hair care business with both parents working in hair care. My mother's family was the Walker family. My father was president of Summit Laboratories, which was another Black hair care company that was started in the 1950s that actually was more successful than the Walker Company when I was growing up, surprisingly. I am a journalist and an author, and I had a 30-year career as a network television news producer with NBC and then ABC. Madam C.J. Walker was born Sarah Breedlove on a plantation in Delta, Louisiana in 1867. It was the same plantation where her parents had been enslaved before the Civil War, and she was the first child in her family to be born into freedom. But by the time she was 7 years old, both of her parents had died.
The young Sarah Breedlove learned early in life about white privilege and Black oppression and the perils of poverty.
Madam Walker, then Sarah Breedlove, was living in Vicksburg, Mississippi, across the Mississippi River from Delta, Louisiana, where she'd been born. Vicksburg had been a hotbed of Confederate activity. In fact, the siege of Vicksburg was one of the hardest battles that the Union Army fought. The plantation where she had been born had been the staging area for Grant and Sherman as they attempted to take Vicksburg. It was a very, very long, many months siege, many months of a battle. And so true, when the Civil War ended, there was a great deal of resentment about the African Americans who were living in the area. Fortunately for her, she had three brothers who had moved from the Mississippi, Louisiana Delta area to St. Louis in the late 1870s. They had a barbershop. That meant that they had a little bit more status than the average laborer. She moved up to St. Louis in the late 1880s with her brothers, and she was sort of moving around from their one little shack and shanty to another. She did what most Black women who had to work were doing in cities at the time, and that was to become a washerwoman. This is a time when there's no electricity, there's no indoor plumbing for most people, and the hardest work was being a washerwoman. You could just imagine what you had to do to wash sheets and towels and bedspreads and to get the stains out of somebody's nasty collars. You know, this is the work that was left for Black women, as Zora Neale Hurston says, the mules of the earth. As it turns out, their barbershop was very near St. Paul African Methodist Episcopal Church. And it was the women of St. Paul who took Sarah Breedlove McWilliams under their wing and began to give her a vision of herself as something other than an illiterate washerwoman.
Sarah Breedlove finally decided it was time to play by her own rules. She set out to take control of her life, starting with the one thing that had given everyone else power over her: money.
Madam Walker started her own company in the spring of 1906. She had been selling products for Annie Malone, the woman who founded Poro, who would later become her fierce competitor. When she left St. Louis and moved to Denver, she was selling Malone's products. But she also, on the side, was working as a cook for a pharmacist, a man named Schultz, who owned the largest pharmacy west of the Mississippi River. And he analyzed the products. He helped her figure out what she needed to add to the product. So then she began to sell a product under her own name that had been tweaked a bit from what Malone did. Now, Malone would forever maintain that Madam Walker stole her idea. This happens all the time. The truth is, Annie Malone was not the first person to make this formula. Somebody else has an idea of how to market it better, how to tweak the formula, how to make it a little bit better. That's what Sarah Breedlove did. It's a time-worn tradition.
It was a tradition that was about to get a new look, because at the beginning of the 20th century, Madam C.J. Walker was part of an avant-garde of ladies like Helena Rubinstein and Elizabeth Arden, who were going to take the women's cosmetics industry that up until this time was completely run by white men and reinvent it in a woman's image.
This is very much a part of this era of the early 1900s when there was no international, national cosmetics and hair care industry. Women, in addition to Madam Walker and Annie Malone, women like Elizabeth Arden and Helena Rubinstein were the people who started this industry. Men didn't care about this industry. It was something for women, cosmetics, who cares? At the time, only painted ladies and women on the stage and women on the street wore makeup. That was something for fast women. The conditions were such that there really wasn't anybody else who was doing this. People were mixing up things at home. There might be some mail order product, and there were some products that white companies were selling, advertising in Black newspapers. But these were products that were really exploiting Black women. There would be a before and after advertisement, and the before advertisement would be somebody with splotchy skin, and these were all pen and ink drawings with splotchy skin and hair sticking up all over, and the after would be the white looking Gibson girl. Well, you couldn't go from this to that. Sarah Breedlove's before and after picture was a photograph of her where her hair had started to fall out, and it was sort of patchy hair. And then on either side, you'd see a front view and a side view with her hair down her back, very full and very bushy and very healthy. And so she was using her own image as a Black woman to say to other women, I know your problem is that you're going bald because you have really bad scalp disease. I have a product that works.
Madam Walker's business model allowed her to utilize an international network of Walker representatives and started an economic revolution in Black society.
Now, as time went on, she said there were women who could see the same vision that she had, who wanted to be her sales agents, who had get up and go, who were dynamos. And those women became really successful. One woman wrote to her and said, you have made it possible for a colored woman to make more money in a day than she could in a month working in somebody's kitchen. That was a woman who wanted to change her life, who really saw her possibilities, who could see that she was going to educate her children. She was going to buy a house. She was going to contribute to charity in her community. That woman had a vision. There were others who didn't quite get the vision. Oh, they wanted the cars and they wanted the fur coats, but they didn't want to do the work. At one point, she decided she was going to set up franchises for shops. And her motto was, I will find a woman in the town who looks like a go-getter, and I will pay for her shop. I will pay for the shampoo bowl. I'll pay for the tables. I'll, pay for the paint. We'll do a little remodeling, whatever little storefront she wants, and I'll do that. And then she can buy the products from me at wholesale, but I'm not going to give her a salary, but she'll get a higher percentage of the sales than she would if she were just an agent. But I'm going to set her up. I'm going to set her up with a shop. Well, in one instance, one woman who she set up, she put the Walker name on the storefront and gave her the branding of the Walker products and helped endorse her and introduced her to the community. And the woman wanted a salary. And Madam Walker said to her attorney, wait a minute, I'm giving her the opportunity to make more money if she hustles, but she wants a salary. That's a cap on that. That might be $8 a week. But if she sells $40 a week, that's all her money. But the woman couldn't see the vision. That's a mindset.
Black people have been cursed by an employee mindset. Madam Walker refused to capitulate to this mindset, and this refusal to settle for the crumbs in life forced her to divorce herself from many people she'd met, starting with the man who helped her begin her company and whose name was on the very product she sold, Mr. C.J. Walker himself.
There is a point where you start leaving the pack. And Sarah Breedlove was selling her products, and she could see the difference that she was making. She liked having a little bit of extra money. She liked the fact that she was able to pay tuition to send her daughter to Knoxville College. She could begin to see the possibilities that her hard work was paying off. And so she was starting to make $10 a week, which was a lot more than $1.50 a week. And she had married a Charles Joseph Walker, a man she had become friendly with in St. Louis. After she moved to Denver in 1905, he joined her a few months later. She married him, and she became Mrs. C.J. Walker first, and then Madam C.J. Walker. And he was helpful to her in her business. He knew how to do a little bit of mail order. He had worked selling ads for newspapers. He knew how to help make ads. And so together they were going to be a great team. And she said, but you know, when I began to make $10 a week, my husband thought that was enough. And due to his narrowness of vision, we parted ways. He didn't really have the vision and the dream that she had. It was like, this is enough. I can buy a newspaper, get a new suit, and, you know, we can have a nice dinner out, and that's fine. And she said, but I saw that I had something that had so much more possibility.
As Madam Walker's fortune began to grow, she gained the right to true freedom of speech. She was able to align herself with icons like Marcus Garvey and Booker T. Washington, even when the United States government and the Woodrow administration were openly working against the interests of Black people.
So Madam Walker's spectrum of political relationships was spanning from Booker T. Washington to W.B. Du Bois to Ida B. Wells Barnett to Marcus Garvey. And Marcus Garvey was, you know, a bit of an upstart at that point. Madam Walker saw what he was doing. Anybody who could get thousands and thousands of Black people to come to an event, to come to a convention, to line up on the sidewalks for a parade, she admired the ability to motivate people, the ability to inspire people. And Marcus Garvey, along with Monroe Trotter and a few others, was very interested in what was going on during World War I, what was going to happen to the African colonies. And she met with Marcus Garvey and a group of other people with an organization called the International League of Darker Peoples. And they really considered themselves monitoring what was going on during the peace talks at Versailles. So she hosted him.
Okay, everyone. I hope you can hear me, making sure that my mic is on here. That is the second part two of this series. I believe this series is going to a part 4, but that is the second half of it. I want you guys to definitely post in the comments what you thought about that, kind of what you got out of it, and share. Let's talk about income versus ownership. Because as you at what we saw in the video, heard in the video, we heard many things, but we certainly, what stuck out to me was the fact that Madam C.J. Walker, first Black woman millionaire, right, in this country, she removed herself from people that had limited thinking. Limited thinking. What do you guys think about that? She removed herself from individuals with limited thinking, right? And that is so important to know who's in your circle, you know, because if people are thinking limited, you know, where does that leave you if you are a visionary? If you're thinking that I can take this national, I could go global, but then you have someone right there with you saying, no, how about we just stay right here? You know, but in you, you know, God has put more in you to do more for yourself, more for your community, more for your family. Because again, Madam C.J. Walker, she wasn't a selfish woman. What did she build? She built one of the first multi-level, if not the first multi-level marketing organization. So she created a lot of Black women millionaires under her, with her. So she took people along with her that caught the vision. She wasn't selfish. And it's very important that we realize as a community, we can't be selfish. We should celebrate everyone. We should celebrate everyone's achievement. It shouldn't be, oh, I like him or I like her. No, celebrate the culture, the community. So she brought people along with her. But it's amazing how she set this woman up in a salon. I mean, she paid for everything, right? But because of her limited thinking, she would rather be an employee than to be the owner of her own company. What do you all think about that? That mindset, and have you ran into people, individuals that have that mindset, whether they are right there with you, maybe in your family, maybe in your circle? Have you talked to people, met people like that? What do you think about that? Ownership versus income, right? So let's get a few comments here. Okay. Good morning, good morning, good morning. You are welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. We hope that you chime in here. Hope that you chime in. All right. Hello, hello, Miss Judith. Thank you for coming in. We appreciate you. Grand Rising, Sister Zelda. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate you and watching this. So you guys think about that. Think about what it is that you would, have you seen, those kind of people? Do you have those type of limited kind of thinking? Think about what you heard, what it means to you structurally. Like I said, what must shift in our community so that we could start closing this wealth gap, because it's been around for a long time. We have to change something. Something has to change. Whether it's our mindset or the people around us, or what has to shift. Something has to shift. We can't keep doing the same thing, right? We can't keep doing the same thing and then expecting something different. We don't want to keep doing that. So this is definitely something that we should think about. And if you have any brief strategic comments, drop it in the chat so we can share it. Drop it in the chat so that we can talk about that, and hear your thoughts about it. We want to really think strategically about this. Ownership versus income. Ownership versus income. So that's very important, and that's what this is. This part two is about. We're going to be hosting another part three of this series coming up next Thursday at 7 p.m. We hope that you certainly can join us with that. This, like I said, is not just a live stream. This is a series. This is a series because this is a serious discussion. We've got to have this discussion, people. We can't keep doing the same thing, voting the same way all the time. We can't. We're voting the same way, expecting change. As you can see in the beginning of part two of this series, they talked about all the Black mayors. I mean, you had nothing but Black mayors for 4 decades in the city of Detroit, and it went bankrupt. So is the issue that we need more Black leaders, or do we need to bring more Black unity? Because if you think about the change in civil rights and what everyone fought for, and the changes in the justice system, that was Black unity. It wasn't one political person. Now, it opened up doors for Black people to get into congressional seats and to get into leadership positions like being a mayor and so on, of course. But it started with unity. It started with marching and voting the same and marching for the same cause and going after the same cause, right? Unity. Even now we have our Black businesses, and we had Black Restaurant Week. I don't know how many people went on our website at iobcoc.org and saw that we had our list of Black owned restaurants for you to visit in the Chicagoland area during that week and celebrate them. But it's there. We're going to keep it there for the whole month or probably even after. But we want you guys to go out and celebrate. You're going to go out to dinner, you're going to have a date night or whatever, come look on the website, for some restaurants that are listed there, right? Check them out. Go patronize. But it's time that we think about ownership, 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 ownership. Yes, I'm going into college, getting this education, all of that. Am I talking to my kids about entrepreneurship, about ownership? Yes, it's great to go get that income job, but what's after that? And we talked yesterday a little bit about how it was so around the internet, how so many Black women were unemployed because of the layoffs in the federal government, right? Well, those were income jobs, income jobs. So we have to, that should show all of us, you can't just rely on the income job, right? Certainly I want to be there. Certainly you want to help somebody else's vision grow, especially they're paying you $200,000, $150,000, of course, And entrepreneurship, it's not for everybody. That's not what we're saying. It's not for everyone. It's not. There are going to be people that work in your business, that work in your dream, that you can help to continue to help their family and build, and so on. So it's not for everyone. But if it is for you, if you do have that type of calling, that desire within you, you'll know if it's there. No one has to convince you. Whether it starts when you're young and you see your kids, they're 11, 12, trying to sell little things, lemonade, or, like my granddaughter started selling purses and she was only like 9, I think. I can't remember, but no one forced her to do it. It's just something she came up with. She wanted to start selling purses, right? So she started her entrepreneur journey. She said, Grandma, I think I want to do the machines, the vending machines, right? So she wants to do the vending machine. She was, and she's an excellent student, nothing but been on Dean's lists and all these lists, since she was in grammar school all the way through now. She's in high school and she's still doing excellent. So, but sometimes you have to instill that in your kids and talk to them about it. We know that you're going to go to college and you're going to get an income. But what if that job came today after you got that job and said, we're closing? What if they say that? That has happened with so many companies, right? Enron way back in the day and so many other places. Why? Because people focus just on that income. So income versus ownership. You guys, DM me, and let me know, what do you think that we should be focusing in on, especially with our children, ownership or income? Okay, this is a very strategic conversation today. Again, I want you to tune in with us next Thursday. All right, we are going to finish part 3 of this series, and we hope that you join us, engage. If you want to be a guest on the show, if you've got a business that you like to be a guest on the show, definitely send us an email. Our email is right there in the stroll there. You can send it to business@iobcoc.org, and we would be glad to talk with you about you being a guest on the show, and so on. So we're really here to promote you and promote your business. So I'm going to take a couple of other comments here. Okay. I agree in dismissing myself from limiting mindsets. I struggled with this in my teens. Wow, thank you for sharing that, Chef Bubbles. I really appreciate that. And I believe that's where a lot of our teenagers are today. They're lost. They know they want to make money. They don't want to go to jail. People can act like they want to, but they don't want to go to jail. They don't want to get out here and doing this criminal activity and doing different things to make money. But again, who do they have around them talking about entrepreneurship? Who do they have around them showing them how they can turn $500 into $5,000 without doing something illegal? It's important that we get to the teenagers. I remember my husband saying to me when he was, he's a minister now, but he was, out there, and he's like, I wish someone would have told me how to buy real estate, Someone would have told me how to go into my business, and just someone would have shared something with me when I was on the West Side on the Avenue in Chicago. If somebody would have just said something to me, I know my life would have been different as I got older. And it's the same today. We have got to try to teach someone. If you start with the kids, your kids, if you start with their friends, if you start with your nieces and your nephews, maybe do a round table. That would be really cool. Call them over to your house and say, hey, niece, nephew, auntie, uncle, we're having a round table and we need you to be part of the discussion. And start talking to them about entrepreneurship, ownership. And if you need help, call on a mentor, call on a coach, call the chamber. We'll be happy to help you to have a conversation with your family, with your circle, about how to get you uplift yourself out of poverty, do something different with your time and your money. I built my first company on $0. And I think I got 1,000 on my 401k back then. It was in 1998. But with God on my side and leading me and guiding me, that company grew to 6 figures in less than 6 months. Now, how many kids would want to take $1,000 or less and turn it into 140,000 in less than 6 months legally? So it can be done. But it's just so many people. I hear this a lot. People say, Black people don't want to share information, Siri. They don't want to give. Why are they holding on to everything? Why is there so much separatism? Why are we celebrating this group of people and not celebrating this other person? What is going on? So I tell them, I don't have the answer for other people, and I don't. I only have the answer about how I think and how God has me doing things. And I do know, I consider myself, I got a big mouth because I'll share information with you. Okay. That's why I got a big mouth, I would say, because I want to tell you. We want to tell you. That's why we tell people, join the chamber, come over here, get advice, let us help you. Whatever it is that I have in me that's been given to me throughout the years from God himself and through my experiences working in the corporate world as a marketing executive, as a vice president, going back to school, getting my degree. Everything that I've learned, I'm willing to give to you. I'm willing to help you to give it to your family, especially your babies, your kids, to show them how it's done. But they have to want to know, right? Some people just don't want to know. They don't care. They want to stay the way it is. But again, if you go to that job and the job is no longer there, what are you going to do? What are you going to do at that point besides try to get unemployment and look for another job? If we don't build our own businesses, if, other cultures cut us out of hiring, you see, they took DEI, right? There's no more diversity hiring and all that. So nothing's guaranteed for you as a Black woman or Black man when it comes to these jobs. They don't have to hire you to do business with the government. And when I was in the corporate world, there was this thing called EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, right? So we had to be in compliance, showing the government that we had, given contracts to this percentage of Black minority contractors, hired this many minority Black people in the company. Now you don't have to do that. Will that come back after this administration, leaves? We don't know. Right? But we should have to rely on that anyway, because we should be focusing on ownership. Let me build a company so that when my niece, nephew, or my child get out of college or get out of school, they can come and work here. Or they can work for my neighbor, whatever, right? We have got to build our own. There's no more excuses, people. Wake up. It's wake up time. That's why we're having this discussion. Again, this is not just a live stream. This is a series on an executive conversation. And this is for the executive-minded people. We have really got to change the narrative here in these United States, or we're going to continually be left behind and be further down on that wealth pole than we are now. And do we want to leave that for our children? Because we know we're going to go home to glory one day. What are you leaving for the kids? Some people, you don't have, there's no life insurance, there's no investment, there's no nothing. This president put out something, well, not even say him, but the founder of Dell Computer put $600 billion in an investment account to give every newborn child from the top of 2025 through 2028 $1,000 investment. I bet because of politics. See, you better get out of this political thing, this Democrat, Republican, all this stuff. I'm an independent because I'm a server of the king. So I don't claim any political party, or now you want to call them gangs because they're acting like gangbangers or something. You with us or you're not. Even Pritzker said, he's like, hey, you want to leave Illinois, leave Illinois. Let me stop it. Come on. We don't have to be on one side or the other. I'm on God's side. And I'm on the side of lifting up my people and helping them to get the resources and the tools that they need to build wealth for their families. That's the side I'm on. And whoever can get that job done, and I feel you can get it done, I don't care what political party you in. I vote however I choose to vote. So the bottom line is you got to be the on the side of your family, on the side of your culture, on the side of your community. You got to focus on building wealth. If you don't have an insurance policy, you need an insurance policy. So then you don't have to go on GoFundMe if something unfortunately was to happen to a family member. So you don't have to go to GoFundMe. There's nothing wrong with it, but you're already set. My grandmother paid for her funeral and everything before she died, which is something that I'm following in her footsteps. I'm going to go do my own funeral. I'm going to do, have everything set up. Why? Because I don't want my kids scrambling around and trying to figure out how to do everything. It's already done. See, these are the little things that you have to think about as an executive, as a leader, as a head of a household. I need to make it easy for my family. What am I doing to improve my family? If you're not doing anything to improve your family, how are you going to build a business? I know the business is to help your family, but you've got to work on some other things too, right? So you can start with a little $25 savings into a savings account. If you do have an income job, put something away. Instead of buying the $200, $300 for the gym shoes, take your child to the bank, put it in some type of interest-bearing account, and tell them why you did that. Because this $200 and $300 for those gym shoes is going to earn you some interest, and you're going to see it at the end of the year. I guarantee you. Let your child see it. We have got to change our way of doing. Or Reverend Jackson's struggle and Martin Luther King and all these people, Malcolm X died in vain if we don't create a change, people. It's time. You see the city of Detroit, we're bankrupt. All those people had to leave. I had been to Detroit in a while. The last time I was there was in the early 2000s, but every house downtown by this casino was boarded up. It was like a ghost town. It was terrible. Black people gone. And if we don't get a grip on this city in Chicago, we already don't have a financial district anymore down there, right? What happened to the financial district? It's gone. Businesses are leaving. Black people, it's a Black exodus throughout Illinois, throughout Chicago, even in other big cities. It's a Black exodus. What is going on? We need our own businesses. And if we get our own, we keep building each other's businesses and helping each other get access to capital and helping one another and unite. We don't have to move. We don't have to leave. because we're building businesses and we're helping one another. Unity. Stop destroying and tearing down the next Black business. So what? We have multiple Black chambers. I love them all. Get the work done. So what? Do you know how many white chambers there are? They don't compete. They get on calls together and work together, supporting one another. I know because I've been on those calls. But we're too busy sitting here talking about, oh, what's the difference in this Black chamber and that Black chamber and who's doing that? It does not matter. You go and get the resources from whomever you can get those resources from. Build your business, build for your family. Unite, Black people, unite. Start loving on your neighbor again. Do you even know who your neighbor is? We used to knock on the door and come borrow a cup of sugar. You knew who your neighbor was. Get back to that. Make it a point to go say hello. Know their kids. You may see their kids in the street, someone's hurting them. You don't even know the kid lives next door to you. You're so in your own world. Well, I'm sorry. I'm here to tell you this is a wake-up call and sip and chat with Siri. You are not in your own world. Because if things keep going the way they are, you're going to need that neighbor. You're going to need the Black community. Come on. It's time for us to unite. Okay? Let's see what other comments we have here. Share some with you guys. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let me show this one. Grand Rising, enjoying the show from Oak Park, saw the awesome documentary. Okay, it should be mandatory in schools to watch. It should be mandatory to watch. It should. And we're going to post, we're going to continually put it out there. It will be, they can go to our website and look at it, all of that. But you should share this documentary with your entire family. If you're going, have a cookout, do your soul food thing and put the documentary on, sit those kids there, sit your adult kids there, whatever, watch it. Because you need to know your history. And part one, we went way back into the history when all this started, where it talked about the great race, how racism has nothing to do with being prejudiced. It's an economic situation. And Black people got to get that through their head. Racism is about economics. Black slavery was all about the white man getting more money, increasing the wealth for their family. We got to change people, and knowledge will change us because what? We know knowledge is definitely power, right? I agree with dismissing. Okay, yeah, we got that. Okay, thank you, brother. And whatever we can do to help you continue further in changing your mindset. Let us help you, because it is a mindset. It starts with how we think. It starts with how we think about the economy, economics. It starts with how we think about our neighbor, all of that, right? We all have people like that in our lives. That's why they say it's lonely at the top. Not everyone chooses to rise. And you are so right. So right. Thank you for that, Zelda. That's right. Everyone do not choose to rise, and if we got to be the person rising for our family, so be it. It's okay. How do you think people were born into wealth? Pritzker, for instance. I don't keep using Pritzker, but he's a Hyatt baby, right? Hyatt hotels. Well, he didn't create the Hyatts. It came from an ancestor. So you could be that ancestor that down the generations, they look back and say, wow, let's thank Chef Bubbles. Let's thank him because he built these restaurants and he did this and he did that. So because of that, we are born into wealth. It can start with you. So yeah, so you certainly can be the change that you want to see. What we got here? Okay, we all have people like that in our lives. And yes, when you have those limited thinking people in your lives, you have got to watch your circle. You can love them, but they don't have to be right there. You don't have to talk to them about your business, right? Do not share your dream with everybody because there are dream killers out here. So you have to be careful. I don't talk about my business to all my family. No, 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 no. Why? Because they're focused on what they're focused on, you know, and that's it. That's all. And that's okay. You know, that's okay for them. I don't know why my glasses keep on moving. I'm sorry, guys. But understanding that you are only savior when it comes to matters of finance is the first step. I researched my way to where I am, no background in finance, but constant learning has brought me far. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Yes, constant learning. We should always be learning something new on a continual basis. If that means going back to school, taking some continuation classes, we've got some tech classes on our website, ilbcoc.org. We've got we've partnered with Google for many years, you know, now coming up on, I think, 4 or 5 years. But we've got those Google certified classes you could take for free. They've given us 500 scholarships. And these classes are taught by Google instructors, and that looks good on your resume. But just even to know project management, digital marketing, all of that, take advantage of that. Go on our website, go on our workshop page, and you'll see it there. You can sign up and start taking the classes. We'll see, you know, people, they'll send you the link and all that, you know, so, but share that with other people. There may be some people, you know, that need a job. You know, there's class courses up there that can get you ready for IT support. IT support people make 6 figures starting out the gate. You know, project management, 6 figures starting out the gate. Digital marketer, same thing. All those courses are up there. And we have been marketing them like crazy for years now, for a couple of years now. And Black people don't want to jump on them. I don't understand why. It's free. The only thing you pay is what, a $20 administrative fee for a class that costs what, $5,000? I mean, come on. So it's really, you know, take advantage of that. But take a look at that on our site. Thank you so much for joining us, Obaswe. Experience is the best teacher, and you have to learn through tough lessons sometimes. The video spoke on community. We have to be comfortable with uplifting others and accepting help as well. Absolutely. I am 1,000% with that. Yes, so many people don't want help. They don't want to reach out to a coach or a mentor or a consultant to help them to grow or anything. They, you know, we don't know it all, people. You know, some people don't even like people giving them something, and they don't even ask. You know, when we're a village, we're going to go through some tough times, right? Don't have so much pride where you can't go ask somebody if you down and out at this particular time. You know, not permanently, but you're down and out this particular time, and you don't be afraid to ask for help. There are people that love you that will help you. Okay? So always keep yourself open to learn. When people join our chamber, you know, we've got our Millionaire Monday calls, and we're teaching, we're learning, and we're teaching at the same time. We've got multimillionaires popping in on those calls and everything. You know, the chamber has a wealth of resources. Our guest on Thursday, Dr. Ola, she's a new member. She talked about it, and she's a doctor. Her husband's an engineer, but she has her own company. She joined the chamber and is excited about it. All the resources. She just couldn't believe, she's like, Siri, so many resources that you guys have. Absolutely. That's why we're here. You finally have a chamber in Illinois. And I even have members across the country. I have members in Florida, in Louisiana. You do not have to just be in Chicago to be a member of our chamber, or, you know, in Illinois. We don't care where you're from. We're going to offer you the same resources. And because of the other companies like my advertising platform, showerfor99.com, we're advertising you all over the country to I think it's 22 2 point some million, or probably no more than that, 200 some million people that you're getting you're being advertised to across the country. We're hosting our first summit in Ghana this year. So we're just not local or statewide, we're national and we're global. And if you want to go there, we'll take you with us. But be open to learning, like what Obisway shared with us. Be open to learning. Be open to it. That's what this series is about. So I hope you're being educated, you're being informed, and I thank you guys for engaging. This has been a great conversation. We're going to get ready to wrap it up here because, again, I have to go out to an expo today and be supportive, right? So, I'm excited to see this young lady hosting her expo, and I'm excited to support her in doing so. So again, the chamber is here for you guys. Feel free to reach out to us, and feel free to join us. We are here to help you. And again, remember what we talked about. Think about hosting that roundtable for your relatives and for the people close to you, and share this video with them and talk to them about income versus ownership. So we thank you guys again for joining us. God bless you. Have a fantastic weekend. Remember to join us again Thursday evening at 7:00. We're going to be heating up this conversation. It's going to be great. And we look forward to you engaging and taking part of the discussion. Have a blessed weekend. Bye-bye.